Kia ora talofa namaste, haere and welcome to the Niche Cache. This is our big old podcast coming at you on every Tuesday. You know what we do, you know how we do it. We're here to discuss some Aotearoa sporting matters. We go deep into Aotearoa sporting matters, and we go so deep exploring the awa, the estuaries, the mountains, the turf, natural turf, grass, just not artificial turf that they play
Not
rugby
the
on.
plastic turf, no.
Yeah. And we are so into Aotearoa sport that we need to update some dynasty chat because the Crusaders of Canterbury, the Christian Raiders, they won another Super Rugby championship. In respect to the Christian Raider Crusaders, they are at this stage, they are the most dynastic Aotearoa sporting franchise, I believe. I think we need to update this. We need to have a little kōrero just to brainstorm it and update it, because I feel like Auckland City, they're just dropping away a wee bit. And Wellington Blaze are the only sporting team in my mind who can rival the Crusaders as far as dynasties goes. Of course, it's a Super Smash dynasty. And somehow the Blaze keep getting better because they won the last Super Smash without much input from Sophie Devine. So that goes to show what a successful Super Smash organization the Wellington Blaze are. I think we've got Auckland City just dipping away a wee bit. You can inform us about that. At the same time, we have the Canterbury Rams in pursuit of some dynastic things. You got to win more than two in a short in 3 years and 4 years. Of course, if you win three in a row, you're amazing. That's certified dynastic things. But if you win two and then you don't win another one, I'm a bit iffy on that. So that's where the Canterbury Rams, they have a chance to jump into that conversation. And I think we've moved past the Breakers kind of NBL dynasty.
They've had a whole other era since then.
Yes, indeed.
But they might be coming back into a new one. Who knows?
Where do you update us on Auckland City? How does Auckland City stack up against specifically the Crusaders and the Canterbury Rams? That would be amazing if we've got two dynastic things from Canterbury with the Christian Raiders and the Canterbury Rams. And of course, St. Thomas of Canterbury College. This is where we get a bit wonky because I bring some things up and then I don't know. I don't know who the Super Rugby Aupiki dynasty is, if there is one. I don't know who the women's... I don't know any college football championships. By college, I mean high school. And so on. So I'll bring up St. Thomas of Canterbury winning back-to-back national secondary schools championships, but I don't know any other high school championship stuff, So we're just talking through it. But how are you feeling about those? Have I missed anything? Do I need to show some respect to Auckland City? What's doing in your mind when I bring up updating the dynasty things of Aotearoa sport?
Well, you've named one more college dynasty than I could name. That goes beyond my realm of focus, but I would imagine there are quite a few. I got to imagine there's quite a few high schools that do very well at a lot of these different sports and win things quite often. Basketball seems like one where I know there's a couple of schools in Auckland that are sort of renowned for being the best at what they do. But
just on that, I would add, listeners, let us know if we're missing
yeah, for sure.
Ekatahuna Rugby, they've won the last 5 championships or whatever, your local rugby club, your local rugby league club, your local football club, because we don't know anything about them. So if we're missing one of those, just let us know. But because I do imagine in some of the regional Aotearoa areas, there are certain clubs that just absolutely dominate their local competitions.
Yeah, fully expect that's true. Auckland City, I think have still, I mean, like they won the National League last year. They didn't win the Chatham Cup, but they have won, I think, four in a row. Northern Leagues, don't really think the Northern League stuff can count as your dynasty if you don't translate that into National League stuff at the end of the year. But they have done that. Like yeah, they keep winning stuff. They didn't look that good for a lot of last season and then still went on and won the championship. So I think, they're not a team to ever count out, but they are lingering a little bit. And they weren't in the best of form before they went away to the Club World Cup. So perhaps that's one that it is a dynasty. It's been a dynasty, but maybe they might be on the sort of wobbly end of it or due a little bit of a rebuild. But I don't think we can say they're out of it yet. I think that's still that's still an ongoing one.
If they won the last National League,
yeah,
they're certified in that category.
Yeah, and they did. And the other one I would mention is Auckland United's women's team, which recently went on a 55 game unbeaten streak, didn't lose a game in all of 2024, won every competition. They're a newer one. This is only like maybe the third year where they've won two National League titles in a row. They still look like they're probably the best team in the country, but it's like the Canterbury Rams example. I agree with what you said earlier. You win two championships in a row, you're a great team. Like that's some legendary stuff. But a dynasty requires a third, at least a third. Three. It doesn't have to be three in a row, three in the space of 5 years or something like that. But it's got to be that kind of sustained year after year contention, but also with you got to win more than you don't in that kind of span. And I mean, as far as the Rams goes, they're the best team in the NBL again this year. Like they're top of the table. They did lose on the weekend, but that was with Taylor Britt was out injured. So Manawatu Jets managed to squeak past them. But I mean, they're on track they're guaranteed a top 2 seed. They're on track to potentially get their top seed again. They've won back-to-back championships, very good at being able to win those one-off playoff games as well. They're the favorites to do it again in 2025. They might be like they're well on their way towards that, but we'll see what happens. I'd put an asterisk on them, and I'd put an asterisk on Auckland United women as two teams in the sports that I follow closely, nearing this territory, but don't think they're quite there yet, and they certainly haven't done it for the amount of time that Auckland City's men's team have, or dare I say it, the Christian Raiders rugby team.
But shout out to Auckland City because they are in that. I will put them in the dynastic category. It's only right considering they won a bunch of national. I'm not sure if it's strictly National League, but they were the best football organized.
They've won a bit of everything,
Yeah,
they've won the ones that's National League, and they've won the one that's Regional League, and they've won the Oceania Champions League a million times. That's why they're at the Club World Cup right now, etc., etc. At least one Chatham Cup in there too.
Right, good stuff. I did, for some reason, this is important to me. I did learn that Logan Rogerson's from NRLWahine.
This is true.
Because I was doing a bit of research on old mate Aublix Tawha, who made his debut for the Dolphins. You get into a fantastic period for Waikato Rugby League. I saw something on New Zealand Rugby League where they're getting some more schoolboy competitions in Bay of Plenty as well. Big presence from Turanga Waiwai, which is tough as a Turanga Waiwai Junior. Of course, we've got the Taharoa connection, Tamare Martin, Tantua Piki, Tanika Willison in the NRLW, Xavier Willison in NRL as well. They're all from Taharoa. But then you go Warriors woman. They have Maya Hilmawana and Harata Butler from Tanifaro. You've also got Capri Paikau, who's she's got connections to Tanifaro as well. The Warriors women are playing some home games in Hamilton. All of that is a shout out to Waikato Rugby League and Rugby League in the Waikato. But also, I mean, Chris Woods he came through Cambridge football. And then, because I just assumed Logan Rogerson was from Auckland. But he's one of the best Kiwi footballers. He's an all-white. He plays for Auckland FC. kind of reminded me of like Tamana Martin and Taintua Piki playing for the Warriors. Then they can boost it down to Taharoa. They can do their thing, to go hunting and all that stuff. Like Logan Rogerson playing the season with Auckland FC. Got a day off, just go home. Just go down to the Waikato, have a good time. So I was, my ignorance led to a pleasant surprise. Logan Rogerson from NRLWahine.
Yeah, it's been a while since he's been there because he joined the Wellington Phoenix Academy while he was a teenager, and then obviously he went overseas and played a little bit in Germany and played a little bit in Finland and a little bit in, was it Estonia? No, I think Max Mata played in Estonia. He played in Armenia, I think, one of those countries. It gets a little bit obscure when you're getting into that level of overseas football, but yeah, I mean, he's probably one of the Waikato's best footballers right now. I'm trying to think who, because I know the Wellington Phoenix women have done a lot of recruiting from that region. Thinking of players like Ella McMillan and whoever, Minai Elliott as well, like players like that who have come from there and joined the Phoenix Academy. Finn Conchi, I think, is from the Waikato, wider regions. There'd be a few of them, but it's one of those ones where I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse. It's like the best players don't stay there, but also because of where Hamilton and surrounding townships are, it's not that hard to just go and join the Wellington team or the Auckland team, whether that's the Phoenix and Auckland FC or whether that's like club teams in those areas. You sort of do have that accessibility. So, plenty of good footballers coming out of that region too, for sure.
Obviously, it's a hotbed for cricket as well, like the Hamilton, Tauranga area.
Definitely.
Old Christian Clark. I think he's from Te Awamutu, off the top of my head. And speaking of cricket, one of the funniest things of my sporting beat over the last few days was Tim Robinson from Wellington. Yes. He was a surprise appearance for Northamptonshire in County Championship Division 2. As always with the cricketing deep cuts, shout out to Short Fly Slip on Twitter for their constant mahi and updating Kiwi cricketers around the world. Their update was Tim Robinson 1 over for 8 runs. I was like, wait, what's going on there? And somehow, not only was Tim Robinson like a surprise selection playing against Middlesex in Division 2, but he came on and he bowled an over. Now, after day 2 of this round of county championship cricket, which we'll dive into later on in the podcast, Tim Robinson actually scored 43 runs in a decent batting effort, batting 5. So that was good for him. Nice little development opportunity for Tim Robinson, who is a fantastic cricketer, probably one of the most like unknown, really good cricketers from New Zealand. But he also gave an interview to Steelbacks TV on YouTube, and he described his over bowling as abysmal. So if you clipped out his 1 over, and no one knows why he's bowling. And Tim Robinson, obviously he's kind of Kiwi import. Maybe he swings the ball. That must be why he's bowling first change. And then he just bowls halfway down the pitch for most of that over. And I was like, you can hear it in the commentators. They don't know why he's bowling. We don't know why he's bowling. He described his own over as abysmal. So why is he bowling? I don't know. It was just a funny little giggle that Tim Robinson's first taste of county championship cricket was him bowling a pretty mediocre over.
You know what I liked about that though is it was like a proper old school medium pacer. He wasn't one of these medium pacers that's holding a bit of pace back because they're trying to get the ball to swing. He wasn't steaming in trying to bowl as fast as he can. He was actually just bowling like the the old autumn leaves, you know, just like dropping out of the sky, and dropping halfway down the pitch in one or two of those. It was yeah, it was a flashback to a bygone era there, seeing a batter having a bowl, but not trying to be an off spinner who gives it a big tweak, not trying to be a bowl as fast as he can, just wobbling to the crease and letting it fly.
I don't have me cricket tabs open, so I can't check hard and fast. We'll save that for the back end of the podcast. But it's a bit like Daryl Mitchell. Like the amount of bowling Daryl Mitchell's doing in the MLC is interesting. But as we know, Daryl Mitchell, the best death bowler for the Black Caps apparently. So he does a handy job there, I reckon. And I was like, I've been kind of surprised because yes, Will O'Rourke hasn't shown that he's one of the best batters in New Zealand. But there's a pretty overwhelming perception that Will O'Rourke sucks at batting. Like I'm talking Will O'Rourke versus Chris Martin. And we rolled through some of the Will O'Rourke not out stats. I updated this for the that was in the bonus podcast that is available to folks on Patreon and people with a paid Substack subscription. We talked about that last Thursday whenever our bonus podcast does drop every single week for the generous folks funding our mahi. And then I included some notes about that in the paid section of our Thursday newsletter. And then I updated that for the free section of our Monday newsletter via Substack, thenishcase.substack.com. And obviously you're batting number 11, so you're going to have a few not outs. But also, if you suck at batting, you're going to get out. Will O'Rourke has 52 not outs in 86 innings of cricket. Internationals, first class, list A, T20s. He is not out in at least half of his innings. You don't do that if you're one of the worst batters to ever play cricket at a professional level in New Zealand. And my point here is that I think maybe Will O'Rourke's batting is better than Tim Robinson's bowling.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't disagree with that at all. O'Rourke, what was it? You had some clips of him smacking boundaries the other day as well, right? Like, was that T20 stuff and like too many competitions in England, but T20 Blast, was that or was that something? Because I think the county stuff has only just started back up again, right? Like in the last few days.
Yeah, he edged one through slip for one of his boundaries, so it wasn't exactly blazing.
Boundary's the boundary. Took Chris Martin a long time to hit a boundary in Test cricket, you know? Different levels.
It did indeed. But and Jacob Duffy. Jacob Duffy's batting for Worcestershire, and he's just like him and Will O'Rourke, or Jacob Duffy from the latest round of county championship, and then Will O'Rourke hit a 21 not out with a nice strike rate, I believe. Let me just confirm this. Will O'Rourke, 21 not out, strike rate of 95, rapid, 3 boundaries. He's just like, hitting boundaries on the offside. And Will O'Rourke, last 4 innings, so he's only batted 4 times in the T20 Blast, he has 3 not outs. 5 not out, 0 not out, 21 not out. And then a 0 out. Like Will O'Rourke, he's not going to be batting 6. He's not an all-rounder. And the thing is, like, whether you see it like, so Amelia Kerr, she comes into the White Ferns, she's a bowler. Then they start to get good at batting, which she was obviously awesome at batting when she was like 14 years old as well. But there's this thing where, like Eden Carson, she came into the White Ferns as a spinner. She was hitting 6s last season. Like whether it's fielding, whether it's batting or batters who get better at bowling, players improve in New Zealand cricket. You can see it in the New Zealand A team. Like all the New Zealand A woman batters, it's mandatory they're scoring behind them. Like, these are skills that they develop when they're training, and they get better. Come back to Will O'Rourke. Will O'Rourke's batting is only going to get better. But I might be disrespecting Tim Robinson's bowling because he does have 3 wickets at an average of 19.3 in first-class bowling prior to that county championship game, I think.
Maybe that's what his captain saw. He was just looking at the numbers and saying, average under 20, we got to give this guy a go.
Will O'Rourke's best batting format is T20 cricket. He's averaging 16.3 with a strike rate of 98. That's decent.
It's decent, and he's also had night watchman duties for the Black Caps already very early on in his Test career, which you don't ask your worst batter to do that. You ask a lower order batter who can spare to lose the wicket, sure, but someone who has got it come, someone who's going to come in and play a good forward defensive. Chris Martin would never have been asked to be the night watchman. I mean, there's those two aren't even in the same rounds. I mean, what we should be looking at is, can Will O'Rourke develop to be a lower order batter equivalent to like Trent Boult, best case scenario, with greatest number 11 of all time. But I think given the night watchman status, someone like Neil Wagner maybe might be a better comparison of, like, if you can get to that kind of level, you're averaging 10, 12 or something. I don't know what Wagner averaged with the bat, but he scored at least one Test match 50. He had plenty of very handy innings where he can come in and either block for a period of time or score runs quickly for a period of time. Like, that's outstandingly good stuff for a lower order batter, and that's a lot more the trajectory we should be looking at for someone like Will O'Rourke. From judging just strictly from what he's shown us so far, that's the trajectory we should be looking at, rather than hopefully that perception of him being a bit of a mug with the bat disappears, because I'm struggling to understand how that could last. I'm not even sure where it came from, other than the fact that maybe, like, young fella walking out early in his Test match career, very tall, bat looks like a toothpick in his hand. Maybe there's just like an implication there of someone who's not going to be able to wield the willow in the same way, but his defensive shot is good enough to already have earned him night watchman status. So I don't, you judge a dude on what he does, right? And what he's done is not bunny stuff.
He's got 12 not outs and 18 Test innings.
Fantastic,
And he's sponsored by a GM. Like, now you got to be careful because the seasons change. They pop up with different bats. Like Izzy Sharp, she's now rocking the grey nickel. She was with Kookaburra at the end of last season. So these things do change. So you got to be careful just shouting out the kit sponsor. Who else is sponsored by GM and the Black Caps? Will Young. That's it.
First name that pops to my head there is Stephen Fleming. So,
Latutu Taylor was the king of
Ross
GM.
Taylor as well, yes, of course.
So, like, the whakapapa here is Latutu Taylor, Will Young, Will O'Rourke. So GM have seen some potential in Will O'Rourke's batting. Like, let me just roll through this, refresh my own memory. We've got Tom Latham, he's Kookaburra, Daryl Mitchell, Grey Nichols, Kane Williamson, Grey Nichols, Rachin Ravindra, the old Skux Deluxe Sports Company, DSC. Fire some other names at me quickly. Black Caps batters.
Devon Conway.
He's DSC as well, the old Skux Deluxe.
Glenn Phillips.
New Balance.
Hey. Wicket keepers, Blundell, Hay, etc.
Blundell is
Seifert.
Kookaburra. Mitch Hay is Grey Nichols. I think there's the Matt Boyle, Grey Nichols. I think Zach Folks is Grey Nichols off the top of my head. Muhammad Abbas is Kookaburra. There's not much GM going around. So we'll come back around to saying GM. They saw some potential in Will O'Rourke. Like, I'm not saying Will O'Rourke, like, he's our number 11. Like, let's be honest. But I think his somehow, some way, his batting is. I won't say it's like underrated, overrated. I'll just say it's a bit unfair. Like, let's show Big Warza some respect with his batting, and let's see if he hasn't batted in this current game for Yorkshire. So we have to wait and see how his batting looks for Yorkshire. You got any like just random funny things from your sporting beats along the same lines of Tim Robinson bowling it over?
Moses Dyer got a red card this morning playing in Ireland. He got a goal as well. He hadn't scored for a couple of weeks, so that was good. See him on the score sheet. I think he was actually playing against. I only seen the highlights, but I think he's playing against Oscar Van Hattem's team, and he's only just come back from injury. I would check that, but yeah, there's a point. There's a point in the second half he was playing against Oscar Van Hattem's team. We'll just have a look and see if he actually played. Yeah, he got 25 minutes off the bench, but that was after Moses Dyer, 6 minutes after scoring an equalizing goal. And you saw the bit of him actually getting sent off. He like walks over and just shoves the guy, and then the guy shoves him back, and just a little bit of brouhaha. But I will dig into that a little bit further for Flying Kiwis because that was kind of funny. He just wanders over and shoves him. And they both got sent off for that. So, in fact, it looks like it's the opposition captain that he was picking on. So, big man Moses. He's not targeting the wee man. He's gone for a bigger fella who's also the captain of the other team. So, if you're going to get sent off, make it worth it.
Yeah, big Donny Dyer.
Big Donny Dyer.
A bit of a soccer scrap. That's what we know. That's what we call a soccer scrap.
Yes.
Just a couple of pushes, red card. See you later. Good bit of biffo there on the football field. We know Moses Dyer only scores bangers, so I imagine this goal was not a tap-in.
A powerful header off a free kick that was sort of swung in near post, rose up above everyone, and got heavy contact on that. No keeper's going to save that unless he hit it straight at his face. So, not like a curling top corner, but in its own way, every bit as impressive.
Who is Aniwaniwa Tait-Jones, and why am I introducing him at the start of the podcast?
Because the NBA draft is happening in a few days, and there probably won't be any relevant New Zealand happenings. Steven Adams' team just traded away their 10th overall pick. We might come back around to that topic at some point. Sean Marks will have some stuff to do for Brooklyn, but frankly, the Sean Marks stuff has stopped being fun quite a while ago. But we'll see what he can work on as he rebuilds on top of the rebuild that he's already done. So there might be something going on there. But if a New Zealander does get drafted, there's only ever been two in history. And again, I'll preface this, I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does, it'll be Aniwaniwa Tait-Jones this year, who Player of the Year in his conference in college basketball. He shot the most free throws of any player in NCAA Division I last season. He is a sort of small forward, power forward type guy. He's from Wellington originally. Played a little bit as a youngster with the Wellington Saints. Some people might remember him from that. He went over to college ball in America, joined a team in Hawaii, where he was there for 2 years playing Div 2. Pretty awesome there. So he transferred for the next 2 years, went to UC San Diego, I think it was. And yeah, as I say, he was the player of the conference, like across the entire conference that he played in. He was the player of the season. And he, averaged, I think, about 19 points per game. He's incredibly good at cutting to the rim, finishing around the rim, taking contact, getting to the free throw line. Not a great three-point shooter, but and that might be something that he has to work on if he wants to sort of play at a higher level. As you might need to level up a little bit there, because you're playing against bigger bodies. It's going to be harder to play as a power forward. He might have to play a bit more on the wing, which would mean, yeah, he's going to have to shoot a few more threes. But yeah, he's also got everyone who talks about him is like the intangible stuff is there. He's got leadership. He's got sort of like a great attitude. He works hard. He defends very well. all that good stuff. He's an excellent prospect and one of our most successful college basketballers ever. I mean, he's the only New Zealander to ever win a Conference Player of the Season award. So most likely he doesn't get picked up in the draft. You never know what might happen because teams can play pretty fast and loose sometimes with those second rounders. But he has had workouts with a bunch of teams, including the Houston Rockets, including like the Lakers and the Clippers, and I think the OKC Thunder, they're now champions of the NBA. They had a look at him. And we're probably looking at sort of undrafted free agency type stuff, invite him in for summer league, see if he can earn a two-way contract. That's more the angle we're looking at there. I had him pegged as the guy like the star college prospect coming out of that sort of scene this year for NBL teams to target. As it happens, he was maybe a bit too much of a star because he's not signed with an NBL team yet, because why would you when you might have if you've got even a 1% chance of playing in the NBA, you chase that 1% chance as far as you can take it. So that hasn't happened. Instead, that was probably Tane Murray who went and signed with Brisbane as a college graduate. He's probably that guy. But I was tracking that a little bit because I wanted to see how the Breakers responded, because the Breakers under the previous administration had a tendency to not even go after the best New Zealand college prospects. You're thinking of like Sam Wardenberg and Yanni Wetzel and Flynn Cameron and guys like this. Yanni Wetzel did end up playing with them, but only after he'd played a season to prove himself somewhere else and in the NBL. So I wanted to see if the Breakers would go after him. As it happens, that just wasn't on his radar yet. And maybe you'd say the Breakers missed out on Tane Murray, who was a DP for them once upon a time. But fair enough. We want to see the Kiwi talent spread out across that league. So, we'll see what happens with Aniwaniwa Tait-Jones, because it's a small chance, but there is a chance that maybe, just maybe, Steven Adams might find some Kiwi company finally for the first time in his entire career next season, if everything kind of aligns absolutely perfectly for him. He has an opportunity, and we haven't been able to say that about a Kiwi player for a long time. Like, I was trying to think of the last time there was someone like that. I remember Ty Webster having a bit of buzz when he finished college, but not like this. I think this is a little bit ahead of that. So it's really just like, since Steven Adams, there hasn't been anyone who's gotten this close. Maybe Corey Webster when he was a bit older and he went back to do some preseason stuff with the Pelicans that year. That's suppose would say that. But yeah, there's a very good chance he ends up on a summer league team, and there is a small chance he might get drafted. There's also a small chance he might get a two-way contract somewhere along the way and find himself in the G League next season. So he's absolutely one to watch.
You did mention the Breakers. Now they have re-signed Parker Jackson-Cartwright. What did you make of that news?
Well, it took the Matt Walsh administration until their very last season to ever retain an import. I think they went like 30 plus imports in a row without ever being able to get one to sign a second contract up until Parker Jackson-Cartwright. So I found it interesting that the Breakers now run by we'll say run by Dylan Boucher, but with newer local ownership as well. Immediately re-signed one of their imports. The first import they signed is the guy that was from last season. So Parker Jackson-Cartwright, we know how good he is. He's one of the best players in the league. He probably has an NBA skill set, but he just doesn't have an NBA size. He's far too short for that, but that means he can come in and dominate in this competition. And he was pretty great for them in the last 2 years. He was great for them the first year he was around, when they were a decent sort of play-in level team. He was still pretty good for them last year, aside from that one time where he tried to fight Ruben Tarangi, who's now going to be his teammate. So that was a bit dumb of him. But you can see the obvious frustration in the way he reacted in terms of how that season sort of panned out for the Breakers. But he was still pretty good there, and what was a pretty dysfunctional team. So you put him in what looks like a much more cohesive team. Put him in a team where he's going to have guys who do a bit of defending around him, guys who can, offer a few more complementary skill sets. I think that that could be a very good thing. And the fact that he's chosen to resign after the regime change also feels like another one of those tacit endorsements to the direction that the team is heading in.
Didn't he also have a little bit of a sock scrap with the coach?
No, that was the other import. That was Matt Mooney. If you're thinking of the same one as I'm thinking of, where he sort of got he got subbed off and he wanted to go back on or something like that, and they had a bit of a yelling match at him, and I think Coach Kopp then benched him for the rest of the game. Yeah, he's not coming back. I don't think that's going to happen.
Bloody oath. What did you make of the news that Kevin Durant would be rejoining Steven Adams now with the Houston Rockets? Obviously, we're coming at this from the Aotearoa perspective. What does it mean for Steve-O?
Yeah, I was trying to write a response to him signing his contract extension with the Rockets for like a week after the news first broke, and I didn't like what I was writing. I felt like there was something missing in there, and then they traded for Kevin Durant, and that seemed to wrap it all up. And so I was able to breeze that one through, polish that off on Monday, and get that written and published, because it seems like, when we're talking about the Steven Adams extension, there were a few things where it was like, these are some nice team friendly, options that Adams has taken. There's the fact that he didn't wait until free agency where he could have sparked up a bidding war, and he probably still would have stayed with the Rockets because the Rockets had the ability to match what anyone else would offer. But he didn't wait to get those other offers to drive the Rockets' price up. He just signed the contract not only before free agency started, but before even the NBA finals had finished, before the NBA draft, which itself is quite an important point, because by getting it done before the draft, that means the Rockets are able to trade the 10th overall pick. Rather than trading a player that they selected with the 10th overall pick, they're able to trade the pick itself, which is more valuable because, A, people get excited about the things that they don't know, because it's just like open-ended potential. Well, this draft pick could be anything. Who knows what we could get with this? We might sign the next Kevin Durant with this. But also it like kind of specifically means the Suns get to make that selection. It'll still be the Rockets picking, because the trade won't be finalized until after free agency has started. Something to do with Jalen Green's contract has some kind of, they have to wait 2 weeks or something. But they'll be picking the player that the Suns tell them to pick for the Suns. So that works out there nicely, because Steven Adams signed that contract nice and early. He also he had it sort of not crazily, but front loaded to where he earns about $2 million more in the first year of that contract instead of the third year of the contract, which by that time, third year of the contract, you're starting to get to where like Amen Thompson's expected, he hasn't signed one yet, but his expected extension will be kicking in around about that time. There'll be a few other guys, and it'll help them with re-signing Fred VanVleet for the future on like a multi-year deal, which sounds like what will happen. And if they can convince, which I think they probably will, because he had this team on his shortlist, but if they convince Kevin Durant to sign another contract, an extension with them, then that's also going to be helpful. It's just that his salary goes down slightly in little steps over the next couple of years. He could have left to go try be a starter somewhere else as well. He chose to stay with the Rockets because he clearly believes in what they were aiming for, and all those things just on their own, they still made sense. As these are nice little team priority things that Steven Adams has done. But they make a little bit more sense now in light of them also trading for Kevin Durant, because they also fit into that very specifically. The timing, most of all, because being able to get the trade done before the draft is massive. That arguably avoids them from having to, instead of being able to trade that draft pick, if Phoenix didn't want whoever they picked with it, then they might have had to include, like, I don't know, Cam Whitmore or maybe even Jabari Smith or something like that. Houston didn't give up any of their valuable players. They gave up a draft pick where they didn't really have room to add a rookie into their team now anyway. They gave up Dylan Brooks, fair enough, because Kevin Durant's coming in to play his position, so no dramas there. You've upgraded on that one. And they gave up Jalen Green, who they will need to find someone else to be their either starting guard or backup guard, depending on how that goes. Probably backup, because I think you let Kevin Durant do a bit more of the playmaking stuff there. But Jalen Green had already signed an extension, and he was their most sort of volatile of their young core. He was the guy who was, he scored 30 plus in one of those playoff games. He also had a bunch of games scoring in single digits. He was the guy that seemed like they were least sure about, and they were paying the most of all those guys. Not for long, because I think Alperen Sengun's contract also kicks in this year. And as I say, Amen Thompson's going to sign something pretty close to a maximum at some stage too. But Jalen Green was the guy who you could see how that might hold them back a little bit if they couldn't upgrade on that. And they've got rid of, so effectively, they got rid of their worst contract. They flipped one of their starters for a better starter, got rid of a draft pick they didn't really need, and a bunch of second rounders, which aren't particularly worth much anyway. And they brought in a future Hall of Famer who, even at 37 years old, still looks awesome. And of course, I guess the other aspect of Steven Adams' contract extension is that Kevin Durant likes Steven Adams. He liked playing with Steven Adams once upon a time. They seem friendly on and off the court. That the picture on the YouTube thing there of him having a joke with KD during last season, that was immediately after Steven Adams had just been ejected for what was probably a little bit more than a soccer fight with Miles Mason, one of the Plumleys, whichever Plumlee it was, that's his mortal enemy. When they'd got tangled up and fallen over, and Adams didn't really do anything, but he still got ejected for it. The only ejection in his entire NBA career, by the way. Kevin Durant's having a joke with the guy who just got into a mini fight with his teammate. He's not talking to Plumlee at that moment. He's talking to Steven Adams in that moment. So they're obviously still friendly. And let us not forget that Kevin Durant, when he played with Steven Adams previously in the Oklahoma City Thunder, he won the Most Valuable Player of the Season award. That was his MVP year, was playing alongside Steven Adams. I'd recommend to people to go and find the clip of, KD's famous "You the Real MVP" speech afterwards, where he goes through every one of his teammates individually. He spent a minute and a half talking about Steven Adams and how bruising those screens are and all this stuff. Well, Steven Adams has got better at that stuff since then. He's a stronger screener now. He's a smarter screener now. He's the best offensive rebounder in the NBA. And I think that probably had a bit to do with Kevin Durant wanting to play there as well, was seeing Steven Adams locked up and, being able to reintegrate himself with a guy who he enjoys the company of off the court, but especially loves playing basketball with on the court as well. And those, we thought the double big lineups were good last season. Imagine when you've got Sengun, Adams, and also Kevin Durant, who's pretty much the same height as Steven Adams. You can see that in the picture as well. They're both 6'11". You add Kevin Durant and his outside shooting to that double big lineup, that's crazy stuff.
And there's also Dylan Brooks in the background there, just laughing.
Oh, yeah.
As if he's part of the Steven Adams, Kevin Durant conversation, which is just pretty funny considering if you know anything about Dylan Brooks. One thing I have been thinking about quickly is Steven Adams only plays in the playoffs. Well, he doesn't only play because you got to play the regular season to get to the playoffs. But it's not like he misses the playoffs very often. I've got his playoff seasons here in front of me. There's one. No, these are series. These aren't.
There was one early in his career where I think Russell Westbrook got injured, and the Thunder narrowly missed out, but they wouldn't have. They only missed. I think they might have made conference finals in the season either side of that. Didn't make it with New Orleans in the bubble year, and then he was traded after one season with them. And I think other than that, it might just be because even after KD left the Thunder, they kept losing in the first round, but they always made the playoffs. But he, technically last year the Rockets missed the playoffs, but he was injured, so it wasn't really relevant. But that might be it. He actually hasn't gone past the first. No, he's gone past the first round once with Memphis in the first year there since the finals run in KD's Western Conference finals run, the famous Thunder versus Warriors series, which was Kevin Durant's last season in Oklahoma City. So Steven Adams has only won one playoff series since then, which is weird to think about, but he has consistently made the playoffs almost every other year.
We'll keep rolling. Lots of basketball here, and we'll finish off the basketball before we do. We've got to do the mindfulness as always. You mentioned the Canterbury Rams. They did lose. They lost to the Manawatu Jets. So that means that the Canterbury Rams are still first. So the Canterbury Rams are first, Wellington Saints second. Now the Manawatu Jets are third, Taranaki, Southland, Auckland, Tuatara. I did see the Southland Sharks victory over the Auckland Tuatara, which was fun. I did learn a bit about that coach, the Southland coach, who spent some time in the NBA coaching. And any coach, any person who leaves obviously this is anyone in the basketball fraternity, leaves the NBA to go live in Invercargill, like you're doing some jar work there. You deserve a pie. So shout out to you, Mr. Southland Sharks coach. You're mentioning the finishing, maybe the crafty finishing of Tait-Jones. I was watching the Franklin Bulls defeat the Taranaki, and Carlin Davison had just 2 layups with like the whole Franklin team around him in the paint. And I was like, that's pretty cool. So shout out to Carlin Davison. We've talked a lot about him throughout the NBL season. The Canterbury Rams did
on Carlin Davison just quickly. I was watching that game as well, and I had a weird thought pop into my head of a player comparison with him. And it's not a basketballing one. I was thinking he's kind of like the Will O'Rourke of basketball, where he's like this young, athletic, very tall, obviously, basketball thing that's going to come with the territory, but he also has the spray can thing about him, right? Where it's like when Carlin Davison, basketball equivalent, hits his line and length, he can do things that kind of like no one else can. And his bounce comes from his jumping, whereas Will O'Rourke's bounce comes from his, digging the ball into the pitch. But there's like a there's stuff that those guys can do athletically that no one else can match. But there's also, with Carlin Davison especially, he gets the spray can out too, where it's like some of those passes, he can flip them around the back. He can throw these no-lookers. There's like one-handers, bounce passes. He's got this full bag of crazy passes, but like one in every 3 of them goes into the stands or out of bounds or something. He's like, he hasn't got the refinement there yet. He hasn't got the consistent line and length, but for whatever reason, that comparison popped into my head watching Carlin Davison play basketball.
If Carlin Davison's layups are to Will O'Rourke's smashing hands, what is the Carlin Davison equivalent of Will O'Rourke's batting?
The 3-pointers, for sure. Because that percentage is dropping a little bit. Maybe still got a few not outs from hitting a few at the start of the season, but that was it's slightly different in that Carlin Davison just was a bad 3-point shooter, and he's become an adequate 3-point shooter. Not a great one, maybe not even particularly a good one, but a good enough one. So where you add that to the rest of his skill set, and it's enough of a weapon to allow him to command enough respect that guys can't just stand off him and allow him to shoot. You got to close out, and then that allows him to put the ball on the deck and drive in a way where Will O'Rourke has, maybe not in everyone's eyes, but in enough people's eyes, he's earning respect for his batting. He's shown that he can defend. He's shown that he can be a night watchman, and now he's starting to show that he can snag a few boundaries, even into the offside, which is relatively rare for lower, number 11 type batters. So there's maybe a bit of a. I think that's your comparison there, is the 3-point upgrade in the Will O'Rourke. The journey of respect, the journey towards respect for his batting.
Yeah, the Rams did have a big win over the Otago Nuggets earlier in the week, though. Manawatu Jets, we haven't talked a whole lot about them this season, but they're on the rise. As I said, they're now third. They've one of the few teams to have beat the Canterbury Rams this season. Manawatu, Corey Webster, his father is the coach. You got Dante Russo-Nance. Specifically, though, like who are the local youngsters in that Manawatu team that have kind of caught your attention? Obviously, Dante Russo-Nance is a local youngster who I think has still got a NBL deal.
Yeah, he's supposed to be moving up to a full-time contract with the Perth Wildcats this year. He's the guy. He's the standout youngster for the Jets, and he's been awesome. Like, it's a massive upgrade for him this year. There's been quite a few players you can say this about, but it's easy to forget how young he is too, because he himself is probably only 20 or 21. He's younger than, well, he's at least the same age as Carlin Davidson. They're around the same age. I'm pretty sure he might be a year younger. And he's just, you wouldn't know it to watch him play. It helps when, obviously, Corey Webster is just one of the best players in the country and has been for a long time. He missed a chunk of time. He'd been out since that All Black series with injury, returned in this game, very influential. Actually left it late though with what looked like, I think, an ankle injury. So hopefully that's more precaution than anything, because they do need him if they're going to do stuff in the finals. But yeah, Dante Russo-Nance being such a young player and just playing like a mature starting guard in that team. Like he passes the ball where the ball needs to go. He's hitting enough shots. He's able to score pretty consistently. He muscles up on defense. He grabs a few rebounds quite a few rebounds for his size as well. So he's one that maybe is snuck under the radar, and especially playing sort of, I guess, in the shadow of Corey Webster, you can forgive people for overlooking it a little bit, but he's made massive strides this season as well, and hopefully he does hang around, because it doesn't always happen. Like we saw with Walter Brown, he had that contract as well, where it's like the third year becomes a fully rostered spot, and they cut him instead of allowing that to happen. So that was with Tasmania, so that didn't happen. But Dante Russo-Nance was supposed to have that last year, and they restructured his contract to say, no, I think maybe you need one more year of development player status. But all signs are that he'll be moving up to the full roster this year, which I don't think Hiram Harris is going to get one. It sounds like he might have to move overseas. Well, not might have to. It sounds like he has chosen to move overseas instead of sitting on the bench for Perth after they scandalously underplayed him last season. But so it goes.
It's also just a big time for Aotearoa basketball in the international arena. As we have referenced a few times, international basketball, it's FIBA. And we have a really good under-19 team. They are set to play the under-19 World Cup. And we've also got a Tall Ferns squad that was named last night for the Asia Cup. Is there some sort of thread between both of them? Is there a difference? Obviously, we'll be updating both of those tournaments as they roll along across all Niche Cage platforms. But is there some sort of theme, any wrinkles and nuggets that have perked up your antenna?
Probably not between the two of them. There's a distinct theme in each of them, but they're not the same, because like that under-19 men's team, that is like it's the best players from last year's under-17 World Cup, where they made the semi-finals, and it's the mixed with the best players of the under-18 Asia Cup, where they also, I think, might make the final or something like that. So like projected starting five there: Tama Isaac and Jackson Ball as the guards, Oscar Goodman on the wing, Carter Hopeway power forward, Julius Halafanoa at center. That's like any one of those guys in a previous era might have been the standout player of their generation, and here we got five players who all can make some sort of claim towards that. Tama Isaac was in the All-Star 5 at that under-18s Asia Cup. Oscar Goodman was in the All-Star 5 at that under-17 World Cup. Julius Halafanoa along with Goodman, was in the NBA Global Academy. You know, if you've been watching the NBL this season, you've seen the prodigious things that Jackson Ball's been doing, but also Carter Hopboy playing for Tauranga as well has been really good. So, like, that is a stacked team, let alone the fact that let's just run through the full squad, actually. Who those five there, the bench would then be Will Blight, Lachlan Crate, Hayden Jones, Sander Masters, Troy Plumley, Josh Wiley, Kahu Treacher. Like, that is the best. I would hazard a guess to say that is the best age grade team that a New Zealand basketball selection has ever seen. Interesting fact on Troy Plumley, I learned recently as well that his dad is it John Plumley? They used to coach the Hurricanes, now coaching over in South Africa somewhere. Someone Plumley anyway.
I thought you were going to say he's the lost Plumley brother, Mason.
Yeah, Mason, Miles, and Troy. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe distant relatives or something. But no, he's just another one of those emerging Kiwi sportsmen and women whose parents have strong rugby union connections and they've chosen a different sport instead. So as it goes. But yeah, that team is absolutely stacked, and I'm very excited to see what they're able to do at an age grade World Cup, where I think they start on Saturday morning. I might be wrong, but I think it's Saturday. Pretty sure those games are on TVNZ as well, because they normally have all the FIBA stuff. And yeah, their first game is against Argentina. That sounds pretty daunting. They do have a tough draw, but also I've learned certainly through years of track and age grade football World Cups, you can't judge the age grade teams based on how good their senior teams are, because there's not always a correlation. So, yeah, best of luck to them. I will be watching that one enthusiastically, because I think that is an incredible squad, and I want to see what those fellas are able to do to sort of like cap off that emerging reputation. The tall Ferns are a bit more interesting, because 2 years ago, they went to the Asia Cup, got their best ever finish, made the semi-finals, and on the back of that, they, that allowed them to progress in Olympic qualifying and things like this. Like, it was quite an impactful result, which also felt like when you're looking at at that time, that felt like a very young squad. And here we go. They've had young teams, had a bunch of success. This is what the Tall Ferns are going to look like for the next 3, 4, 5 years or something like that. Charlie Sledger-Walker, Stella Beck, Tara Reid, Crystal Ledger-Walker was there, Nina Davidson, Talia Tupaia, etc., etc. None of those players I just mentioned are in the Asia Cup squad for 2025. For like various reasons. Charlie Sledger-Walker's been injured, and Tara Reid, I don't know what she's doing, but she seems to be based in Australia these days. Crystal Ledger-Walker had a baby, so I guess it's not really on the cards there. I'm not. I mean, they don't tell you in the press releases why certain players haven't been picked. They just only talk about the ones who have been picked, and then none of the other articles about it seem to ask any questions. So they just repeat the press releases in different wording. Same quotes and everything. There are 3 players from that Asia Cup squad last time that are going to be repeating this time. Taylor Dalton's returning, having finished up her college career. Ezra McGoldrick, she seems to just be there every time now. Like, she's the player who's emerged as the reliable, always available, dependable player. And Ratoya Tamilo is also back, she was a little bit of a development player in that last one. She's since gone on to really find her feet in the college stuff. So she's someone who has earned her way, I won't say earned her way back in there, but she's definitely shapes to be a bit more of a consequential presence this time around. But yeah, the last couple of squads, we've seen a lot of debutantes. We still got a couple of debutantes in this one. Olivia Williams is probably overdue. She's born and raised in America, but has her mother's from New Zealand, and I think her great-grandfather was actually an All Black on that side of the family as well. And she's played a lot for New Zealand age grade teams and stuff, and is currently doing the college stuff in the USA. And that's one that probably felt like that was an inevitable selection at some point. The other debutante is Rebecca Pizzi, who I don't know anything about, and she played for Australia under 17s, under 16s, under 19s. Now, apparently, she's a New Zealander. We do have an Australian coach for the Tall Ferns now, Natalie Hurst. So This will be her second tour in charge on a full-term basis, but I think there was an interim one before that where she also took charge. So she's found an Australian to fill up the squad. Other than that, McKenna Dale is someone who's emerged in the last few years as well, same as Ezra McGoldrick, always seems to be available, always seems to be there. Bailey Flavel, Pelis Hokianga, really talented young guards. They're hanging around. Ashley Strawbridge's worked back in lately, Emmy Shearer. But like the last tour that they played against Australia, the two players that I thought progressed their cases the most for further tall Ferns selections, like there's a few star players that didn't necessarily have anything to prove, but I thought Tegan Graham was pretty handy off the bench, but she hasn't been selected here. And I thought Sian Rabati was excellent in that series, and she also hasn't been selected here. But she did sign a contract with I think Adelaide in the Australian League for the upcoming season, so that's nice for her. But I'm a little bit confused about the Tall Ferns direction here. Like, it seems like you're rebuilding on top of what was a rebuilding team, and I don't know why. Is that just because all the other players are unavailable, or is it a new coach just has different ideas about selections, or I'm not sure. But it's just it's one that I try maybe keep my ear to the ground and observe and try learn a few things, because it's not quite the stacked team that I was hoping for what is a fairly major tournament, and I don't know why that is, but there's some good scorers in there, and there's some very good young players in there, so maybe that is a crossover between these two sides, is that there are some the talent coming through is pretty excellent regardless, but yeah, I'm surprised that it is as inexperienced a squad as they have picked, and hopefully that doesn't matter, and hopefully they do very well at the Asia Cup. But it was a little bit glaring to look just like 2 years onward from what felt like a changing of the guards successful tour in the previous Asia Cup to just 2 years later have hardly anyone from that team returning for the next Asia Cup.
This, if I'm as we enter the mindfulness zone, if I'm a bit more zen, a bit more chill, I'm like, they're just building the depth out, increasing the pool of players who have international basketball experience. And I think as long as we don't repeat this cycle for another 2 years, another 2 years, another 2 years, and nothing happens, I think maybe like what we've seen with the football Ferns previously, you just keep getting players international experience, build out your pool of players who have international experience, and then the stars start to align in Matariki fashion where your best players are available and the players you call up to plug holes in your squads are well equipped to step up. So
the thing with that is I thought that's what they were doing in the last couple tours, and so that the stars would align for the Asia Cup, but apparently not. So we'll just, we'll wait a little bit further down the line. We'll see what happens, because as I say, we don't know why players are unavailable. They might have genuine reasons, and this is just the best squad that could be picked. But yeah, nothing really gets explained in those press releases. So we'll see how they go. It's still, as I say, it's still a good team. You still got McKenna Dale there. You still got Taylor Dalton. You still got Ezra McGoldrick. Like, they'll do some things, and they'll hopefully be able to repeat their performances of the last one, because that was, the last Asia Cup. That was we don't have someone as star-studded as Charlie Sledger-Walker's reputation in this squad, but that was a young rebuilding type team as well that wasn't necessarily expected to do what they did. So maybe history is repeating itself. Who knows?
Make sure you check out our website, theniche-case.com, for the in-depth deep dives. A lot of the notes, nuggets, and wrinkles that we're talking about today, we typed out in our Monday newsletter via Substack, thenichecase.substack.com. That comes out every Monday and Thursday, sent straight to you. And it's full of Aotearoa sporting information. It's most of it is completely free. And then if you want to help fund our mahi, you can upgrade to a paid Substack subscription. There are a few bonus things there in the newsletter for paid subscribers, but whether it's a paid Substack subscription or joining us on Patreon, patreon.com/our-niche-case, our niche case, they are great ways to fund everything that we are doing. We record our bonus podcast every Thursday for Patreon and paid Substack subscribers. The full newsletter is copied into Patreon the day after as well, so you get all of that on Patreon. Otherwise, Buy Me a Coffee goes hard as well, just as far as the donations go. And we need to do some mindfulness, but if you don't mind, I would like to offer you a bit of mindfulness from The Wire. And
From the TV show The Wire?
The TV show The Wire.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one and only McNulty.
Not the first guy I would have thought for, for a wise sage of that show. There's a few other candidates who might have been higher on that list.
By wise sagey meaning Bubbles. There's this one, he says Bubbles is basically the homeless dude who's like, he's given information to the cops, he's a drug addict. He says, ain't no shame in holding on to grief as long as you make room for other things too. That's very sage.
That
mindfulness
is from
basically a crack addict. But my McNulty mindfulness is they can chew you up, but then they got to spit you out, which is very McNulty.
Yeah, that is.
But what mindfulness did you have in store for us?
Well, I had a quote here from the poet Gary Snyder, which reminded, I remembered it as you were talking about the Southland, was it Southland Sharks coach? Yeah, it was, because you were talking about a dude, fringes of NBA coaching, moving to Invercargill. And that reminded me of the quote I had already picked out from Gary Snyder that says, find your place on the planet, dig in, and take responsibility from there.
Old mate Southland Sharks coach, he's digging in for Invercargill. I mean, he might not have, he might not be a permanent resident because it's only a couple months a year, but he's found his spot. And I mean, he's probably not. He might be, out in the Central Otago region type of Queenstown-y. You can make a commute to Invercargill, but good stuff there with the be where your feet are type of thing.
But and also take responsibility for it. I like that angle on it because it's sort of, he starts with that, like, find your place. We can all do that. I think we all, we've all got those places. If we haven't, if we don't, then we'll find them at some point. But he takes it further as like, dig in, entrench yourself there, but also take responsibility. It's like, it's not enough just to have the places. You also then, you kind of got to protect and enrich them, and that's good stuff from Mr. Snyder. Still alive, I believe, in his mid-90s, that fellow.
I think he was playing halfback for the Penrith Panthers, old Brad Schneider.
He might have been.
He dropped the ball a few times, but he was good for the Panthers in their victory over the Warriors. This helped me settle on an idea about the NRL because I think the NRL is, I think it's the best sports competition in this corner of the world because every NRL game is entertaining. You're always going to see crazy shit. You might not always see like a highly competitive game of rugby league, but you're always going to have fun watching it. And in such a competition, I am confident in my appreciation for the NRL because time and time you see it over and over again. The team that is missing the players can win against the team that has the players. We've literally seen it in the last two games that the Panthers and the Warriors have played. The Warriors defeated the Panthers, I think it was at Magic Round last year. Warriors are missing all their players. Panthers have their players. Warriors win. Then we come to Mount Smart. Panthers are missing their players. Warriors, they're missing a few players, but not as many players as the Panthers. Panthers win. I think it is too simple and a bit it's kind of silly at this point to just assume the team that is missing players is going to lose. Or if you're missing these players, it's going to be an easier game. because it doesn't matter. The team, regardless of like whether you have your best players or not, the team that wins is the team that shows up ready to smash their opposition over and over again. And the beauty of the NRL is that if you don't show up with Hundy's effort, Hundy's intensity, Hundy's physicality and smarts and discipline, you can lose to what in theory is a weaker team. Like we've seen it back to back with the Warriors versus Panthers. Dolphins are running hot. Like this happened after the Warriors game. Dolphins, they're on the rise. Aublix Tawha made his debut. Aotearoa from Wellington, but he's going to play for New South Wales. I just had to interrupt myself there because I heard Aotearoa being mentioned about New South Wales, and it's like we need some big game experience. And Aotearoa's played so many tests already. Like Aotearoa is already ready for the biggest levels of, second biggest level of rugby league, Origin, internationals and stuff like that, because he plays for Tonga every single test, and most of those test matches are in front of huge crowds who are far more vocal and vibrant than State of Origin crowds. So I think Aotearoa has already got that experience, but that's just the side yarn in my head. Welcome to my mind. Dolphins were running hot. Knights are stinking up the joint. Knights beat the Dolphins. Like, you can't make these assumptions in the NRL. And that's why the NRL is so fun. That's why the NRL is a great competition. So it was and like this comes into what I was saying on the bonus podcast. Do you remember how I previewed the Warriors, how the Warriors could win, or how I thought the Warriors were going to win? And I made this mistake that I'm talking about myself.
From memory, it was a fair bit to do with Dylan Edwards and Brian To'o. I don't think played either, right? Not having those guys being able to cart the ball up and getting those sort of the meterage that they would lose. Can't remember what else may have been said.
Kicking, kick chase.
Yeah.
Smashing them in the early sets, like all of that stuff that has been a staple of Warriors' success. I made the wrong assumption. So I'm expressing my own lesson learned here, because what the Warriors they were unable to dominate that area of the game that I thought they should, and that they have done in many games this season, many games under Coach Andrew Webster. It was the Panthers who cruised downfield. It was the Panthers outside backs who were better and more consistent. It was the Panthers who won the collision over and over again. It come back around, like, it doesn't matter who's on the field necessarily, as long as you're winning the collisions, you got more discipline, and you just play better rugby league. Like, rugby league's one of those things where your effort and intensity drives the result. Not necessarily like NBA or other sports. I'm kind of talking out of my backside here. I haven't thought too deeply about this, but I just feel like rugby league, the result depends most on, like, did you show up with your Hundy's effort, because that usually decides the outcome. And now we have a situation where 4 biggest crowds at Mount Smart from the last A-League season and this year in the NRL, 3 of them have been lost by the home team. So we've got Auckland FC versus Melbourne Victory, 29,000. Auckland FC versus the Phoenix, 27,000. Warriors versus Raiders, 26,500. Warriors versus Panthers, 25,000. Only one of those was a win.
And the New Zealand team lost in all 4.
Yes, correct.
RIP to last year's Phoenix.
Yeah. So it's like, and of course the Warriors. So there's this weird thing about Mount Smart. It's the temple, the Mount Smart temple, where people from all backgrounds, socioeconomic groups, cultures, ages, they all come to the Temple of Mount Smart to worship sport. But the teams don't necessarily win in front of those big crowds. They don't reward the crowds for their victories. And I don't know, after that, of course, Auckland versus Victory and the Warriors versus Raiders happen on back-to-back nights on the same weekend. There's some bad juju there. And of course, the Warriors, those two home games are their last two home games. Biggest crowds, but 2 losses.
I'm a little bit worried there because the All Whites have also just announced a friendly game against Australia. Well, 2 friendly games against Australia, one in Canberra, but the other one is in Auckland in September at Mount Smart Stadium. So we haven't beaten Australia for a little while, and that doesn't bode very well.
It's specifically for the Warriors, it's like, they should have a home advantage. Like, this is why you want to finish high up on the NRL ladder, because then you can basically play, I think, 2 finals games at Mount Smart Stadium if you finish top 2, I believe. But we have just seen the Warriors lose at home in front of the 2 biggest crowds of the season. So, don't know if we have a home advantage right now. And that's a very strange thing. So it was just a tough game for the Warriors. There are a couple of stats that laid out the physicality battle with big differences, but then there are also some stats like you could view these as positives because there wasn't much difference. So tackle breaks, there wasn't much difference. Post-contact meters per run. Well, tackle breaks and post-contact meters per run, the Warriors had a small advantage. Meters per run were the same. Average play the ball speed, the Warriors had a very small advantage. Passes per receipt of the ball was the same. So those things were pretty similar, and I thought they would be vastly different. Like these stats. Possession, 44% to 55%. Average set distance, 34.5 meters, 43.6 meters. Line breaks, 2 to 6. Offloads, 1 to 9. Ineffective tackles, 20 to 1. That tells you the Warriors lost the collision. They lost the battle of the physicality. They lost control of the ruck and control of the game, all of which I find very interesting because the next game the Warriors play is Saturday, 5 p.m. against the Brisbane Broncos. And if the Warriors' best recipe for success here is to grind it out, to take the Broncos into the deep end of the pool, see how tough they are, see how rugged they are, see how the Broncos finish the game if the Warriors don't fold in the second half like the Sharks did. Which is a bit weird for the Sharks because we've seen them fold in the second half a couple times recently against the Warriors, then against the Broncos. If the Warriors lose the collision, lose the physicality, lose the ruck control against the Broncos will blow them away. Because they have so much firepower. They have so much talent in their team, but I think the Warriors have a better 80-minute rugby league. We've said it all season, set for set grind. Repeat the set for set grind over and over again. Then you start to make inroads. None of which they couldn't even implement it against the Panthers. Because their Panthers outside backs got them on the front foot. Then you start rolling downfield. Hard to win that set for set grind. So it's like the weakness that the Warriors showed against the Panthers is a concerning weakness coming into the Broncos game, because the Broncos could blow the Warriors apart if the Warriors make the same mistake. The good news for the Warriors is after each loss, they've had at least 2 wins. So they lost the opener, then they won a couple of games, 3 games, I think. Then they lost to the Storm. Then they won like 5 or 6 games. Then they lost to the Raiders, won a couple games. Now they lose to the Panthers, and we'll wait and see if they can get back on track against the Broncos. But I am, like, obviously you get players back, players in and out. Kurt Capewell's pretty important. It's tough. Like, I just don't think Tawha has taken his opportunities in the NRL for the Warriors. I like him as a player, and I think he will thrive at the Rabbitohs under Wayne Bennett. And I think I don't think Wayne Bennett does the recruitment at the Rabbitohs, but the Rabbitohs have signed Tawha with Wayne Bennett established as the coach. So in theory, Wayne Bennett likes Tawha. I think that is a lot of recipe chat. I think that is good for Graham Taufa. It's a good move for him. But I don't think he has taken his opportunity for the Warriors at centre. And it'll be interesting to see what team they name for this game coming up against the Broncos. Obviously, we record this on a Tuesday morning. Teamless Tuesday will be later on after the podcast is uploaded. Another thing I'm pretty positive about, though, the disparity in offloads. Warriors had 1 offload against the Panthers. They had 9 against the Rabbitohs and 10 against the Sharks. They aren't a huge offloading team, but that shows you, that is one little snapshot of how the Panthers dominated the collision. Because the Warriors couldn't get any offloads out, Panthers got a few offloads out. Let alone the set distance, the ineffective tackles, and all that stuff. I will try get into the nitty-gritty tomorrow on Wednesday, because I want to clip out Jacob Laban's efforts. Now, I think Jacob Laban has been awesome, especially the last 2 games, but pretty damn good all season. I said it after the Sharks game, that first half of Jacob Laban was crucial in setting the foundation for that second half explosion. And he was one of the best players against the Panthers. Couple line breaks, it was Jacob Laban chasing back to make the tackle and then make another tackle. Last 2 games, he has played 50 and 71 minutes. This is the first time he's played at least 30 minutes in back-to-back games this season. He's played 50 and 71. But this isn't just Jacob Laban. Dimitri Vaimunga, 38 minutes, 38 minutes. It's the first time he's played at least 35 minutes in back-to-back games. Tanner Stowers-Smith, who cares about his minutes? It's the first time he's played back-to-back games. Leka Halasima played 80 minutes in 3 consecutive games, I think it was, earlier in the season. So this is the second time he's played at least 2 games of 80 minutes back-to-back. So the youngsters are getting a lot of game time right now in these last 2 games. I think they'll be far better off for that experience. And I think Laban, Vaimunga, and Halasima have all played in those 2 home losses. And now Stowers-Smith has experienced the bad juju of a big loss, or a loss in front of a big home crowd. That's relevant, I believe, because these young players aren't just like having it all their own way. It's not like they're just getting too big for their boots because they always win at home and they, rally in Australia and they don't. We all face adversity in life, so I don't want to say they haven't faced adversity, but they haven't felt the lows of NRL footy. That doesn't apply because they have experienced 2 losses in front of a big home crowd. And these are very important development checkpoints, I believe, for those young players that should set them up nicely moving forward. Because we're here trying to piece together the bad juju of losing at Mount Smart, these youngsters, let alone anyone else you want to highlight in the team, they are tasting what it feels like to lose in front of the biggest crowds of the season at Mount Smart Stadium.
Yeah, I was thinking about that a little bit before too, because it was like, I think this is the time of the season where you learn a lot about teams, right? Because you learn heaps in the first couple of weeks because everything's fresh. Then you get into the ebbs and flows. But around about this time of the season is where it's like you're too far away from the finish line for it to be a sprint yet, and you're too far removed from the start of the season for it to be new. Like you're in the trenches at this point. This is like origin period as well, you know. There's always going to be injuries at this stage. This is a tricky part of the season. And I was thinking it might have been right about this time last season where the Warriors did that equivalent thing where their understrength team beat the Panthers, but then I looked it up and that was not true because that was actually Magic Round, so it was about a month ago. And when I looked it up, the equivalent result this stage of last season, 22nd of June 2024, was actually Gold Coast Titans 66, Warriors 6. So it was their 6-6-6 game. So yeah, this is a bad. The middle of June is always bad for the Warriors apparently, but because the reason they got me curious about that is because they lost in week 1 to the Raiders. Well, that was the start. The first game. They didn't have a game the previous week to build off of. They lost in, it was the beginning of the season and they kind of got thrashed there. They also got thrashed by the Storm earlier this season, and that was coming off a bye. Did play the week before the second Raiders loss. That doesn't fit into this pattern, but this game losing to the Panthers was also right after a bye. So 3 of their 4 losses, they didn't play the week before. And I wonder if that's something to, especially for a team that's very good at like, when they play well, they do win those collisions and they get into the grind and they play very efficient rugby league. Maybe losing a bit of that match rhythm, not playing the week before is, there could be something in that. There could be something to, jot down and learn. I don't know. But the other thing, and I obviously can't answer this, so I'm going to defer to you and ask you, is did you feel like this loss to the Panthers had a lot in common with that Raiders defeat at Mount Smart as well?
Yes, because they had the biggest crowds of the season.
That for starters, yes.
We talked about after the Raiders loss, like how excited the Raiders were about winning. And yeah, it was like there's a lot of Kiwis in that team. Not New Zealand Kiwis specifically, but a lot of players from Aotearoa who would have been playing in front of friends and whānau at Mount Smart Stadium. But then you also had Sevilla Tomale going crazy after the game. He was doing like troll mana waves and like, fuck yeah, and all this shit. And it's like, fair enough, you won. But there was like a energy to the Raiders and obviously the Panthers where they, as Australian teams, I think they're aware of the challenge about coming to Mount Smart. And they went above and beyond with the energy, the fizz, the hype, the physicality, and all that stuff, which that's my concern moving forward. If the Warriors can't match their home crowd, and they have now been outplayed by Australian teams matching the battle against the home crowd, that's a bit of an issue. But then we get into the New Zealand angle. Like, I've been thinking about this. I do have like a Kiwis core that I might just throw out now, because this, I think, is a good way of viewing the Kiwis as far as these are the core players, and then you've got players you can sprinkle in. But this stemmed from my idea that I think right now Joseph Tapine is better than James Fisher-Harris. Now, obviously, when I've got my Warriors cap on, I think James Fisher-Harris is hugely important, and he's better for the Warriors right now than Adam Whenua-Blake was. And he's more important to the Warriors right now than Adam Whenua-Blake is to the Sharks right now. But as far as the best New Zealand players, the best New Zealand Kiwis players, I think Joseph Tapine is top of the pops. Like, he's everything. Because now Joseph Tapine has added the leadership at the Raiders, and his leadership is almost like, it's basically the same as Fisher Harris. He's always had the meters, always had the tackle bus, always had the offloads, always had the tackling, but now he is the big Donny leader of that Raiders team, and he's driving their success. So I reckon Joseph Tapine, I've got him ranked ahead of James Fisher Harris, and that's awesome for Joseph Tapine. But my Kiwis core is Shans Luku-Klokstad, Jermaine Isako, Ronaldo Mulitalo, Dylan Brown, Jerome Hughes, Tapine, Jeremy Marshall-King at hooker, James Fisher Harris, Isaiah Papali'i, Nelson Asofa-Solomona, and Moses Leota. Like, that's my core, because they have all played a lot of international footy. And the thing we need to keep in mind, I've also got this idea, like, another little journey into my mind, kind of, just a little bit insecure, a little bit annoyed, because all the attention's on, State of Origin, Australia. And it's like, New Zealand Rugby League, what are you doing? Like, give us something. Even if, now this is the dark arts of the NRL is not going to allow any representative fixtures involving non-State of Origin teams and players at this time of year. They're just not going to do it. We don't have an Anzac test. We don't have any mid-season international rugby league. We don't have any mid-season representative rugby league. The NRL as an Australian entity won't allow it. But at least New Zealand Rugby League, like, say something. Like, throw out ideas. Because I can do my battle of Aotearoa, Tamaki Makaurau versus Aotearoa. I can do the fantasy lineups and stuff, but I just gets a bit tired of it. Because I don't like doing the fantasy, like, this is what it could be. I just try to deal with this is what it is right now. So I have thought about that stuff, but then I'm like, well, patience. Because the Pacific Championships, if Australia goes to England, they're touring the Ashes. Let me see. Just double check this, because I don't want to be chatting shit. You know what I'm saying? I want to look at the Pacific Championships this year, and the NRL doesn't even have the draw up. So hopefully, I think what we're going to have is Pacific Championships, and it's going to involve Samoa, Tonga, New Zealand. And it's like, just be patient for that. Now I've lost my original
point. Kiwis core.
Yeah, the Kiwis core. We've seen it over and over again in recent years. I reckon you need international experience. That's why Tonga does the job in front of their big crowd more often than not, because their youngest playmaker, the youngest leader, has played in front of those big crowds over and over again. Like, you need international experience to win international games. That's why Australia defeated New Zealand last year. That's why Tonga defeated New Zealand last year. So you need that experienced core. And my core is still, I think, part of the top 17. Now, obviously, you inject Matthew Tomoko, Sebastian Chris as your centre combination. You inject Griffin Neame, Leo Thompson, Xavier Willison, all those dudes. Britain Nakora should probably be in my core. But it's not playing great footy for the Sharks, right? Whereas you compare that to Moses Leota and Isaiah Papali'i, in my mind, they played themselves, they doubled down as the core from their performance against the Warriors in Auckland. Moses Leota is from Auckland. Isaiah Papali'i is from Auckland. I think some of the Sorensen Whānau, let me double check this while I'm talking. Maybe the Sorensen Whānau comes from Auckland. Scott Sorensen isn't from New Zealand, but his whānau does have that history with the Kiwis. Let's go Kurt Sorensen, and Dane Sorensen. They are from Auckland. So even Scott Sorensen, who's not from New Zealand, so straight up and down, he has the links to Auckland. And then obviously Casey McLean's in the Kiwis mix and so on. So that's my Kiwis core. Obviously, players can play their way into it. Players, like you sprint that. My point is, you sprinkle the youngsters around that core, but you need that core to win games. And I'd hope to see Brandon Smith come back with the Rabbitohs, add himself to that Kiwis core. But the performance of Leota and Papali'i and Joseph Tapine and Sebastian Chris and Matthew Tomoko, Casey McLean, probably playing in front of friends and whānau as well, because he's from Australia. Simi Sasangi, Ata Mariota, they're from Auckland. They're playing for the Raiders in Auckland. Anyone else I'm missing off the top of my head for the Raiders? I don't know. But those two losses, to come back to your original question, Raiders and Panthers, not only are they good teams with good fundamentals, good systems, they, as organizations, they were up for the challenge about playing in front of big Mount Smart stadiums, but they also had that kind of New Zealand, Auckland core that would have been really hyped for that game as well. So I think they are two teams that were probably well equipped to win those games. But then you go to the Broncos, like the Broncos have a bunch of players from New Zealand. They didn't necessarily come out fizzed up to roll over the Warriors as the Raiders and Panthers do, but then it probably reflects where those organizations are at. Raiders are the best team in the NRL right now, I believe. Panthers have just won 4 NRL championships. At some point last week, I did allow myself to think, wait, what's if James Fisher-Harris wins 5 NRL championships in a row? Like that. I don't even think like Glenn Lazarus did that. And he won with the Broncos, Raiders, and Storm as a prop. But that was part of the like post-Sharks, is this our year type of stuff that was pretty quickly humbled. So, wow, I really took a detour from your question there. But I did have that Kiwis core idea written down. And to me, it shows the strength of the New Zealand Kiwis, and then you kind of build around it. And I'm obviously being pretty unfair to Briton Nakora. Matthew Tomoko should be in the core as well. Leo Thompson's in the core. Nofahu White, he should be in the core. Like, these are core players who, if available, are going to be selected. And many of them have played in New Zealand over those 2 wins against the Warriors.
Yeah, which gets me thinking about that Hawthorn squad and how they kind of don't have the bulk of their core players outside of 1 or 2. But yeah, interesting times. As I said before, this is a very meaty part of the season where I think you do, and like you started off by saying about the NRL, it's just it's a mad competition where a team can win by 50 one week and lose by 50 the next week, and it's just kind of par for the course. It's not a crazy wild anomaly. It's that actually just happens throughout the season because it's such a competitive league. And yeah, those margins can be fairly slim, where if you're a few percent off in your performance, that can suddenly look like a 30-point loss in a game you thought you had a chance to win, or whatever. Seen a few of those gone in both directions for the Dragons this season, who, by the way, did once upon a time, I think it was like the 50s or 60s, I think they won 8 in a row or something like that. So it's been done. James Fisher-Harris wouldn't be the first. I did actually want to I never got around to doing it, but I have the tab open somewhere. I was going to go and look at the Panthers' last 4 their 4 premierships in a row and all the finals games that they played in that run, to see if James Fisher-Harris played in the most of them, / if he played in all of those games. I never got around to doing that, or to see who else might have played in all of those games. So If I find time, I might bring that back up on the Thursday one, because that was kind of an interesting tangent that I wondered about, which might turn out to be nothing, or it might turn out to be like actually James Fisher-Harris maybe was the only player who played in all of those games as they won. I don't know, but um, as I say, it's only a hunch, but I might look that up at some other point and see how it goes.
The Fisher-Harris Moses Leota was that battle was incredibly fun as well.
Much better than the Fisher-Harris and Fanua-Blake one from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, like I don't. I'm trying to think through the difference, and it's obviously the relationship. Because like I don't like Fisher-Harris. He does what he needs to do on the rugby league field. Like they just do the job they need to do, which as a middle forward revolves around dominating your opposition. So you need to have some niggles, some like ruthlessness there. But like Fisher-Harris isn't going to go out of his way, although he did against the Panthers. Like in the second half when I was feeling good, like they come out second half, they got a little lead, and Fisher-Harris, he's just like bullying the Panthers. Like he just wouldn't let go of the Panthers dude who's going to play the ball. And I was like, I see what you're doing here. This is just pure Fisher-Harris bully type of things. But Fisher-Harris and Fanua-Blake, they don't have a rivalry. They don't have a relationship like that. Whereas Fisher-Harris and Moses Leota have the best relationship. Isaiah Papali'i was a Warriors junior. Like he's coming back against the Warriors. He is there to smash Warriors. And that was really fun. Now it's all like these are the things we miss out. Because they would be playing against each other in my Battle of Aotearoa. Moses Leota's from Auckland, Fisher-Harris is from Northland. So it'll be Joseph Tapine and Fisher-Harris trying to smash. It'll be Tapine, it'll be Fisher-Harris, it'll be Leo Thompson, it'll be Griffin Neame, it'll be Xavier Willison, it'll be Nelson Asofa-Solomona trying to smash Moses Leota, Isaiah Papali'i, maybe Jason Taumalolo if he's healthy and available. We got a little glimpse of it, at least for the Warriors against the Panthers. But I've got plenty more notes that we need to get through, because there was a very funky situation where Compton Purcell made his first appearance for the Penrith Panthers under-21s team, who defeated the Warriors in Jersey Flegg Cup. We also had Kalis Putoko make his debut in New South Wales Cup, coming up from the under-21. So Mawala Graham Taufa went from New South Wales Cup to NRL. Putoko went from under-21s to New South Wales Cup. And then the under-21 centers were Brandon Norris, the Aussie from Darwin, I think, and Patrick Moimoi. Patrick Moimoi, it was like he has a development contract right now, I think, but he hasn't played much this year. So he's kind of just settling down in under-21s. And so you got your centers laid out right there. Because the other thing that I saw this weekend, a lot of Warriors are playing Fox Memorial in Auckland. So Kahu Kappa played for Mount Albert. Hiraka Waitai Hainga played for Point Chevalier. They played a lot of centre footy in the under-19 SG ball team. So that's basically your centre depth right there. You have Putoko, Norris, Moimoi, Kappa, Waitai Hainga. Waitai Hainga he went to Hamilton Boys High School. Kalis Paul Putoko also went to Hamilton Boys High School coming out of Tokoroa. So a nice little New Zealand schoolboys rugby union reps, I believe. So nice centre stuff. Compton Purcell, he was also a centre for the SG ball team. He also played a bit of wing. So Compton Purcell was playing for the Warriors under-19 team earlier this year. And when the Penrith Panthers come to Auckland, Purcell plays his first game for the Panthers under-21s. He was playing left wing, and the left centre for the Panthers under-21s was Siali Whaiamani, who was in the Warriors under-21s team last year, moved to the Panthers for this season. Compton Purcell's not even the first player from the New Zealand Warriors under-19s team this year to move to another club. Meihana Pauling was playing SG ball for the Warriors. Then he moved to the Titans, where he's been playing NRLW, the under-20s competition there. So there's a lot of weird kind of crossover stuff happening here, but it was good to see Purcell show up in that Panthers team. Obviously, I'm wearing two hats. I'm wearing my Warriors hat, my Kiwi NRL hat. But I think ultimately, like Purcell, he played one game at under-21s on the wing. If another team offers you a regular spot, which I think he's got in the Panthers at the under-21 level, and you're not in the Warriors under-21s team, you're going to take that. It's just a better opportunity. But the Warriors have a lot of center and outside back depth, so that's why he wasn't playing much under-21, so he just took a better opportunity. So if you're a Warriors fan and you're always stressed about the Warriors leaving, well, how about this list? These are players who left the Warriors from at least the end of last season. Hudson Frost was in the under-17 Harold Matthews Cup championship team. Then he played for the Sharks under-19s. Carwyn Patterson was in that under-17 championship team, played SG ball for the Bulldogs. Now he's playing under-21s for the Bulldogs. Jackson Stewart, he was under-17s with the Warriors last year. Played under-19s for the Roosters. I think they won the SG Ball Cup. Now he's playing under-21s. So you got two players right there, Carwyn Patterson, Jackson Stewart, who were under-17s last year. Now they're playing under-21 footy. That shows you how good the Warriors pipeline is. Ezekiel Aiti, he was in the Warriors system last year. Now he's with the Knights. Malakai Filippo played under-19s and under-21s for the Warriors last year. Now he's playing Bulldogs under-21s. Whaiamani. Zion Mai'uu was New South Wales Cup. Now he's Bulldogs New South Wales Cup. Ben Penny. He was in the Warriors under-21s last year. Now he's Sharks under-21s. Aeti Samuelu, under-21s for the Warriors last year. Now he's Eels under-21s. What do we got there? 11 Warriors juniors from the end of last season who have moved to Australian teams. Of course, it's sad. The Warriors, they can't keep their players. Well, I mean, crikey Jack. Like, they had the Mount Albert versus Point Chevalier game, had it like most of the Point Chevalier team are Warriors players, under-21s, under-19s. The Warriors, there's just too much rugby league talent for them. So players take up other opportunities. And Compton Purcell is the latest. Now signed to the Panthers, so you can have a cry about how the Warriors don't keep their players, but you can also see what's happening here. Whether it's Patterson and Stewart, like they might be 18 years old playing under-21s for Australian teams. Or guys who are just moving in the same grade. These guys are wanted by Australian clubs. And they're wanted because they're good players. And they come from a good system at the Warriors. So to me, it's a reinforcement that the Warriors are doing good stuff and that other NRL teams are coming hunting for that talent. And it doesn't take much hunting. Because Compton Purcell's best try in SG Ball Cup was against the Panthers in Sydney. No surprises then that when the Panthers come to Mount Smart Stadium, Compton Purcell is on the wing. Deep breaths. We had Aublix Tawha make it his debut for the Redcliffe Dolphins. If we're talking about Kiwi NRL organisations, the Dolphins are a great Kiwi NRL organisation. Well, I'll speak about Tawha, but they also have Trey Lolosio, Aotearoa Junior starting prop for Redcliffe in Queensland Cup most weeks. You've got John Aniwaniwa. You've got Taveta Nofahu. You've got Elijah Rasmussen playing for Central Queensland. They were recruited from Auckland. Lolosio left the Warriors to spend time with the Tigers. Then he joined Redcliffe in Queensland Cup. Patrick Kailahi is another notable junior for the Dolphins who's been playing NRLW. So you got the Dolphins, I think it was when Peter O'Sullivan was in charge of their recruitment. No surprises. Aniwaniwa, Nofahu, and Rasmussen all played first 15 rugby. That's what Peter O'Sullivan loves. He loves a bit of first 15 rugby. But they were juniors from Auckland, all from Auckland. But then the Dolphins also did funky bits of recruitment. They got Lolosio into their system. I don't know if he's in the Dolphins pipeline, but he's playing for Redcliffe. Then you have Tawha. It was this is a bit of a nerdy thing, but like when someone has an incredible backstory, you expect it to be discussed when they make their debut. All we got for Tawha was Aublix Tawha. So, well, okay, he doesn't play for the Wars, but he's Mr. Tawha. This dude, he's a Turangawaewa Junior from the Waikato. He initially went to the Raiders, and then he had 2 years in with Tweed Heads, and then he's just popped up everywhere kind of since then. He was a fullback for Waikato in 2019 in the National Premiership. Then he made his NRL debut as a middle forward. He also played rugby union in the Netherlands. And if you look at the highlights package on YouTube, he is folding rugby union like props and number 8s. But, I mean, like a dude who was a fullback. He was a fullback. He was a midfielder in rugby union. He was kind of a centre, outside backy rugby league player, I believe. Then he initially appeared with the Redcliffe Queensland Cup team as an edge forward. Now he's made his debut as a middle forward. And he looked pretty comfortable in the NRL in the loss to the Knights. Very physical. That's why he's playing in the middle. Big effort, gets around the park. It was pretty interesting. The Dolphins had him, Ray Stone, and Kurt Donahue on the field together in the middle. They're all small forwards. I don't know. No, I think Tawha came on for Ray Stone, and then he was playing with Donahue and Mark Nichols, who's a big bopper. But then the Dolphins had an injury to Jack Bostock, so Donahue went out to the edge. So then it's Ray Stone in the middle. Like, this is small forward 101. And Tawha is a small forward. He's probably bigger than your average dude. But as far as NRL middle forwards go, he's a small forward who gets through a lot of work, smashes blokes. He's very physical and fast. That's what you want as a middle forward, relative speed. You want that speed, obviously, to make meters, but then it's the speed in getting back to the defensive line, speed covering holes, and general mobility. So Tawha is the 9th Kiwi NRL debutant. Can you keep count and see if I can list them all off the top of my head? Tawha, Salisi Foketi, Benaya Iowelu, Sean Mullaney, Moses Leo, Tyrone Thompson. That's all. How many is that?
You got up to 6.
Oh. This isn't good podcasting, so just having a blank. So we'll keep.
Well,
keep
did you
talking.
say Aublix Tawha?
Yes, I did say Aublix Tawha. Oh, Tanistawa Smith.
Oh, of course.
That's another one. we'll stop there because we got to keep talking shit.
2 to go, but close enough.
Yeah, close enough. Close enough. So there's a lot of players from Aotearoa who have debuted this season. And unless Tawha wants to play for the Netherlands, I think he's pretty locked in as a New Zealand Kiwis contender, which could be very valuable considering he plays middle, can probably cover edge, and he can probably cover like a mid-game shift to centre if required. So he could be a valuable squad member. The 2 other Kiwi NRL debutants this year, Elijah Salisa, Leo Moana, and of course, Bailey Bentley Harpe. The similarities between Bailey Bentley Harpe and Mawala Graham Taufa are kind of crazy. Both recruited from Aotearoa by the Roosters, and both kind of centre wingers who will both be playing for the Rabbitohs next year. Quick roundup of NRLW trial teams. Now, the Warriors don't have a trial yet, so we'll wait and see what happens there. But we did have a lot of NRLWahine playing trial footy. As expected, the Broncos crew was absolutely crazy. I think 13 of their 27 players are from Aotearoa. The funkiest wrinkles there were Monica Tangawai, who I think is a black fern, and Moana Courtenay playing in the centres together. And there was also Shakayla Mahikita Monshao on like as a utility. So that was good to see, of course. So let's go through the full Bulldogs crew. Ash Quinlan, Tia Karanga Katoa, Alexis Tauiniai, Shannon Muru, Paiwelu, Mata Matu Leo, Fotomawala, Saracen Oliver, Waimari Martin, Samina Lokatui, and Lanaya Mahakita Monshao. Martha Mata Ali, former Black Fern, she was starting on the wing for the Eels. Jada Katafua was starting at edge forward for the Sharks, as we know, sister of Makaya Tafua. Tarina Titamaki from Black Fern Sevens, she was starting at centre for the Tigers. There was also Pia Tapsul, starting prop for the Dragons. She's a former Black Fern. The Knights, they had Fane Finau from Aotearoa. She was in their squad, along with Grace Kukatai, Shanice Parker, Tanika Willison, Tiana Davison, Isabella Waterman in the Raiders system, along with Bartlett, Tatiana Finau, Kirahatina Matua, Amelia Pasacala, Robin Zaretti, Leanne Tufunga, who's moved down from the Tigers, and Mackenzie Wiki. And the Broncos got a really strong crew as well. Mela Hufunga, Gail Broughton, Brianna Clark, Lavinia Gould, Aneta Nu'uasala, Tafito Lafaele, and Kerry Johnson and Azalea Maka, who are both from Super Rugby Aupiki. Kerry Johnson, I think, was starting on the wing, and Maka was on their bench. So a lot of NRLWahine in the NRLW trial squads. Roosters, Otesapule, Eels, Martha Mataale, Tigers, Tarina Tatamaki, the only teams with less than 2 NRLWahine in their squads, which were trial squads, so they were a bit bigger. And we'll see what happens next there. I think NRLW starts not this coming weekend, but the weekend after. So I imagine the Warriors would be pretty keen to get some footy played before then. And also shout out Josiah Karapani. Very impressive on the wing for the Broncos. He should stay there, I reckon. And it'll be an interesting battle. He should be playing for the Broncos against the Warriors. So it'll be good to see what happens there. He was actually a Warriors junior as well. Played SG ball footy for the Warriors, I think. Right, let's quickly roll through some football. Victoria Esson signed to the Wellington Phoenix. Pretty big signing, I reckon. Veteran goalkeeper, international experience as far as football Ferns goes, as well as playing football around the world. What did you make of Victoria Esson joining the Wellington Phoenix?
Yeah, it's never my favorite thing when the players who are based overseas come back to play in the A-League because it it is a drop. It's not the same competitive level as some of these other divisions can be, but don't think you can blame a 34-year-old goalkeeper who fell out of favour towards the end of last season with Rangers after 3, on the whole, pretty good years there. She is the established New Zealand number 1. That does make me worry a little bit about the football Ferns' depth at a time when Annalite's not actually really playing football at the moment, and Vic Esson's come back to the A-League, and we know there's a sort of a big dearth beneath them, and they've been trying to fill that out, and they're kind of struggling to find options other than maybe Claudia Jenkins, except she didn't manage to play on either of the 2 tours that she was selected for the football Ferns, so still waiting there. And to be honest, wouldn't be shocked if Jenkins, after a really excellent season with Adelaide, if she herself might want to head off overseas and maybe turn that into a little bit more of a competition. We'll see what Annalite does as well, because at some point she'll be back in the mix. But as far as the Phoenix goes, this is an astoundingly good signing. Like, first of all, they have had an import goalkeeper for the past 2 years. Now they've got an import level goalkeeper who is a New Zealander, first choice international for the football Ferns. Well, that frees up another import spot to pad out your attack, which is in pretty desperate need of a little bit more consistency there, a little bit more cutting edge, a little bit of just an extra touch of class on top of that. But it also follows on from 3 really impressive import signings that they've been able to make, and adds to what is building out now as quite an experienced core that they can build around of new players. But it's also, there's going to be a new coach, and it's going to be a fairly new looking team. So I think an element of rebuilding that was probably necessary. Also very important, I think, that one of those key senior players is a New Zealander. I think that's a pretty necessary thing in order to have, like, they're going to be playing with a bunch of young local players, so you need someone like that who can offer a bit of guidance, but also someone just to be like that's what we're aiming for kind of thing. We want to have the kind of career that someone like Vic Esson has had, the tournament she's been to, and this is coming directly after the retirement of Annalie Longa. So Vic Esson just gets to take over that kind of the Kiwi mentor in the leadership group. But importantly, they've also signed older / more experienced imports who can bring that on the overall scale as well. So yeah, fantastic off-season work so far from the coachless Phoenix, but I think that takes them up to 13 players under contract. That's including quite a few of their younger ones. So we'll see. There's a fair bit of work to do. Still got. Let me look at the old squad from last year. Grace Jarley, Mackenzie Barry. I think we can scratch out all the imports, but Rebecca Lake is another local. Zoe McMeekin. Amelia Abbott, I think we can check on there. Emma Main as well. So quite a few of last year's local core as well, who don't know if they'll be back yet or not. Might even want to count Marissa Vandermeer in that, who wasn't with the team last year, but was going to be until she redid her ACL. So she did her ACL, and then while recovering from tearing her ACL, she tore her ACL again. But she did just sign with Western Springs, so it sounds like there's a comeback on the cards. Didn't play for them this weekend. That might be a few weeks away. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, Marissa Vandermeer is getting closer, and she was promised a contract with the Phoenix when she got back. They sort of cut the last year of her contract. She's like, well, you're out for the season before the season's even started. We kind of like to use that spot on someone who might actually play this season. But in doing that, they kind of had a handshake agreement that she would then be offered a contract once she's ready to go again in the A-League. Whether that still stands now that Paul Temple is no longer there, I don't know. That might have been his deal rather than a club deal, but we'll see how it goes. It's good to see Marissa Vandermeer back in the mix as well, because she was actually quite a crucial Phoenix player over the first 2 seasons. So they're building out the squad pretty nicely. They've potentially lost all their imports. It's probably likely that they'll lose a few of those locals that I mentioned as well, but there is still a good core of academy graduates in that squad. They do still have Alyssa Wynnum, and they're adding some good experience, really impressive outside signings so far as well.
And a quick trip through the marketplace. Let's go into what do they call it? the farmers market of Flying Kiwis? What's just the headline acts? Who's the main dudes or wahine who have been signed, or you're hearing the scuttlebutt about?
Plenty of scuttlebutt at the moment. I mean, Lubikache is pretty much certain to be leaving Empoli, and there is like a long list of teams that are lining up to get you know to get their bids in on that one. Too soon to say what will happen there. Obviously, if there are more teams that are interested, the longer it might take because they're just driving each other up. But they're very heartening to see that there's that much interest in Kakache. Most of the big dogs, though, we haven't heard a lot about. I mean, the most notable women's free agent that we knew was going to be a free agent was Vic Esson, and now that's all sorted. The other one's probably Maya Hahn, who has left Turbine Potsdam. She'd said weeks, months even ago that she was going to leave that team. They drew one game last season in the German top flight, lost all the others. Most of them were thrashings. Her last act for Turbine was to get sent off. So, yeah, it was probably a departure made a little bit of sense, especially because she probably didn't play as much as she would have liked, especially after being quite an influential player and then getting promoted the year before. So she's left that team, as has like half of the rest of their squad. Pretty much like half the team just were all like, yeah, we don't want to play here anymore. So that team got relegated, but she's not staying in the Bundesliga. She's joined Victoria Berlin in the second tier. So she'll be playing against Turbine Potsdam, who still have Suya Herring, New Zealand age grade international, still plays for them. So she's left a team on the slide. She's joined a team on the rise because Victoria Berlin only just got promoted to the second tier, but they have quite a sort of fancy ownership model and very sort of progressive type team. So probably a fun team to play for, and they were very, very dominant in getting promoted. So there's probably hope to think that they might settle into the second tier pretty quickly and might even be pushing for promotion straight away to the top flight. So at the very least, it's a nice change of scenery for Maya Hahn, who has emerged as a key football Ferns player in recent times. George Stanger's probably the main other one to mention, who was playing for Ayr United. He's signed with Kilmarnock in the Scottish Premiership. He is a New Zealand under-20s and under-23s international, born and raised in Scotland, but with his dad actually played rugby for Scotland. But because his dad played rugby for Scotland, he spent a lot of time in the Southern Hemisphere, where he met a New Zealand woman who's George Stanger's mother, which is how he's eligible. He was the guy who was in centre back with Nando Peinecker once upon a time at the Under-20 World Cup when they kept Erling Haaland quiet when New Zealand beat Norway. Nice little achievement there. He also went to the Olympics, but he hasn't played for the senior national team yet, and I don't think he's going to play for the senior national team in the short term because we've got a lot of good centre-backs right now, but seeing one of them move his way back up, because he actually started his career with Hamilton Academicals, seeing him move back up to the top flight in Scotland, that's nice, especially at a time when the other guy who was playing Scottish Premiership was James McGarry, and he's just gone back to Brisbane Roar, got an early release to go there after having been, fallen out of favour where he was. Those are like the big confirmed deals, but the one to watch for, and the reason why I probably will do Flying Kiwis on Wednesday just to give it a little bit of extra breathing room in case this can get through, is there's talk that Max Crocom's going to sign with Millwall. And he was playing for Burton Albion, who barely avoided relegation. It was a bit of a miracle that they avoided relegation from the third tier, League One, last season. Now he's going to a team that only just missed out on the promotion playoffs in the Championship. So a team that will be hoping to be pushing towards Premier League football. He won't be their number one. They haven't established number one there, but that doesn't mean he's not going to play because their Danish goalkeeper, Lucas Jensen, tore his Achilles in April. So chances are he probably won't even be available until I don't know, Christmas time. I don't know the recovery of an Achilles contract, Achilles tear is. I'll ask Tyrese Halliburton and the rest of the NBA, a bit of Jason Tatum, bit of Dame Lillard. Weirdly, all three of those guys wear number 0 for their teams, and they all tore their Achilles during the playoffs. So I don't know how that coincidence is supposed to work, but yeah, Max Crocombe potentially might be jumping up to the English Championship, which would be massive at a time where we're expecting, he's the incumbent all-whites keeper right now. He's proven why that was over the last tour, but also I mean, Alex Paulson's not going anywhere, and we expect him to make he's not going anywhere in the All Whites scene. He's definitely going somewhere in a club scene because we expect him to make a progressive move, having gone back to, well, finally actually properly joining up with Bournemouth and expected to go out on loan. So Crocom's responded. He's seen the threat. He's responded. He's also made a progressive move himself. So good stuff from him. And the thing about, like, he's going to get that little window to try earn that number one spot, probably potentially up to half a season with Millwall, supposing this all goes ahead as it sounds like it will. He wasn't the number one goalkeeper. He wasn't the week one starter in either of the seasons he played with Burton Albion. It took him less than a month to win the starters gigs in both of those seasons. One of them, he went on to be player of the year for the club. So, and when he played for Grimsby before that, he joined them as the number two. They had sort of like a fan favorite keeper who had been there for ages, been there for several years. He ousted him as well. So everywhere he goes, he doesn't sign as the number one, but he soon makes himself the number one.
And he wheezes on the field.
He did once. And he got sent off for it. So, But it's funny because, of course, he's joined Millwall, which is a team that is quite known for, like, bad fan behavior. Whether that's still fair in this day and age or not, I don't know. But it's they're all trying to figure out who this Max Crocombe guy is, and when you Google him, that is one of the things that comes up. So that story might be a little bit resurgent.
Right, bit of cricket to finish. We'll roll through this quickly because it's been a monster podcast today. New Zealand A women, they lost their first one-dayer against England A, but it was a close margin, 6 runs. England A 297 for 4, New Zealand A 291 for 9. I'm quite impressed with this. It's as long as this is like close competitive cricket, those are positive results for me, considering who England are in women's cricket and the resources they have in their development pipeline. Best performers with the ball, Bree Illing took 2 wickets. We also had a wicket for Flora Devonshire, Jess Watkin. Hannah Rowe was the most economical bowler, though, for no wickets, 4 RPO. She was the only bowler below 5 RPO. The best batters, Bella James, captain Bella James, 80 runs, batting number 4. And then Izzy Gaze, 81 runs, batting 6. 81 runs. Let me check the strike rate because that's a better way of saying it. Strike rate of 137 for Izzy Gaze. So that's a great knock for her. Hannah Rowe, 30 runs at a strike rate of 103. And then Emma Black gave the Kiwis a chance later on. 32 not out, strike rate of 110. So she went down swinging. And Bree Illing gets the Willow Rourke not out, batting 11, 1 not out. Good strike rate as well, 1 off 1. The old 100 strike rate. That's what we like to see. Great stuff there. Bella James, Izzy Gaze, Bree Illing, all of them have White Ferns experience. Izzy Gaze was selected as the wicketkeeper, no Polly Ingalls. And she's a very good hitter of the ball. So as long as she keeps developing that, it's going to be good for her. And I expect her to keep playing aggressive. Let me rephrase it. I expect her to keep playing with positive intent in England in this A tour. But of course, Bella James, I think, is pretty interesting because she has a lot to offer the White Ferns as a aggressive top order batter. Team selected: Plymmer, McLeod, Watkin, James, Sharp, Gaze, Rowe, Devonshire, Black, Tucker, Illing. And they did play England development on the weekend. That was a bit of a take the piss game. Couple of ladies batted twice, that type of thing. But Jess Watkin smashed some runs and took some wickets. So that was a good start for her. But then she got a 3-baller of a duck against England A. Next game, Thursday evening, and then another game Sunday evening. So we'll be all over that as you would expect. County Championship cricket, but first, T20 Blast. Well, Mitchell Santney's got 13 wickets and an average of 11, so that's all right. But the two dudes I want to spotlight from the T20 Blast, Matt Henry, 10 wickets at an average of 20, and Jacob Duffy, 10 wickets at an average of 23.2. Now, they were awesome T20 bowlers for the Black Caps last summer, and they've continued it in the T20 Blast. And also Nathan Smith sneaking along with 8 wickets at an average of 23. Mitchell Santner is playing county cricket now for Surrey, alongside Nathan Smith. They are playing against Worcestershire, and that means they're playing against Henry Nicholls and Jacob Duffy. So there's a few wickets there, not many runs for any of the Kiwis. Smith took a wicket, Santner took a wicket, Duffy took a wicket, and Henry Nicholls scored 31 and a duck. Shout out Henry Nicholls. We also have Matt Henry versus Tom Latham. I don't think Matt Henry hasn't batted in the T20 Blast, which is a bit of a bummer because that dude smashes boundaries. Like if Will O'Rourke, if his batting is adequate, Matt Henry's an all-rounder. How about that? Because Matt Henry...
Well, you know how we have done that thing where we run through like the various spots of their careers and how Matt Henry's record kind of stacks up better than someone like Tim Southee's. I think we can safely say that for his batting as well is also better than someone like Tim Southee's, which is not me picking on Tim Southee's batting because I actually think he's better than the reputation, but equivalent spots in the batting order, so it is a kind of direct comparison.
Oh, Matt Henry's batting far more reliable than Tim Southee. Everyone had hope about Tim Southee's batting. Matt Henry, he scored the runs.
Yeah,
you could always count on Matt Henry to hit. You could count on him to hit 15 off 10 or something like that, at least. But he didn't do that in County Championship. He scored 7 off 13. And Tom Latham's currently not out, 65 not out. Matt Henry, most expensive bowler heading into day 3, 11 overs, 3.5 RPO, 3.54 RPO. Next most expensive is 3.5 RPO. So Matt Henry sucks at bowling. Well,
to Tom Latham at least he does.
Yeah,
doesn't normally have to bowl to him. They're even domestic teammates.
Will O'Rourke has taken Ben Sears' spot in Yorkshire's team. So Ben Sears, he's partaken in World War III. Will O'Rourke, he's come in 2 wickets, but he's Wild War the spray can, 5.1 RPO. But he's took a couple wickets, and we're waiting to see what he can do with the bat in the most exciting thread of the Kiwi County Tour. What do I have here? Tim Robinson, we talked a bit about him before. Bowled a great over, scored a few runs. And it would be rude of me not to celebrate Logan van Beek. 2 wickets first innings, and he's yet to bat in the second innings. Logan van Beek in the T20 Blast. Just casually, 121 runs, averaging 40 with a strike rate of 121. 13 wickets at an average of 21. Simplify that. Logan van Beek averaging 40 with the bat, 21 with the ball in the T20 Blast. Let's finish with this. I think Logan van Beek is a first 11 New Zealand cricketer right now. I don't think he's a first 11 black cap because he plays for Netherlands. And unless he's really, really desperate to play for the Black Caps and like do whatever's required to play for the Black Caps, I don't think he will. I think he's like, well, I don't know. To be honest, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but I do think he is one of the best cricketers from New Zealand right now. He's built up to this point. He's always been a very good all-round cricketer. But recent, like county championship, he's been awesome as well. I would like to pull up his stats. It is Division 2, where people like to poke holes in the divisions. But we don't do divisions here in Aotearoa. We just, enjoy the cricket. So you do need to take that into account. Now, remember, averaging 40 with the bat and 21 with the ball in T20 Blast. County Championship, he's currently averaging 28 with the bat and 25 with the ball. I think, so Black Caps, they're developing talent. So you want Nathan Smith there. You want Muhammad Abbas there. You want those type of players getting the opportunities for the Black Caps moving forward. I think Logan van Beek, he would be a very interesting plug and play type of Black Caps cricketer. But it's just far more interesting for everyone if he's playing for the Netherlands. But as far as reliable cricketing all-round ability right now, Logan van Beek, he's first 11. He might be better than Colin de Grandhomme type of cricketer. More athletic. Doesn't take Colin de Grandhomme was athletic, but he didn't move very fast. But yeah, I'm just we got to celebrate Logan van Beek. He's a genuinely awesome Kiwi cricketer, but just because he doesn't play for the Black Caps, he's not necessarily viewed in that way. And he's doing a fantastic job for Leicestershire in the T20 Blast and in County Championship cricket. And of course, he will, next T20 World Cup, he'll probably be playing for Netherlands and he'll do a good job because that's what he does.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those kind of, well, it's not all out of sight, out of mind, because he's pretty excellent for Wellington whenever he's playing, and he plays throughout the domestic stuff. But yeah, I think that point you made there is because he's not on the Black Caps radar, do think his ability gets slept on, as though maybe he's one of those guys who's playing, because some of the other guys who have played for sort of associate type nations, as born and raised New Zealanders, are kind of guys who you're well, they would never get into the Black Caps. Van Beek, if he was available, would have played some Black Caps cricket at some point. But he's not, because he's playing for Netherlands. And so I think maybe there's almost a little bit of a stigma of the guys who play for those kind of countries are the ones who wouldn't ever have played for the Black Caps, but that's just not true with Logan van Beek, especially not on his form of the last couple of years. And first of all, he's just getting county cricket opportunities like that. That's already quite interesting, because there's only a handful of players in the sort of Plunket Shield type realms who get those opportunities each year. He's one of them right now. And also he's delivering pretty solid, very respectable, outstanding in terms of his T20 stuff, performances at that level across a couple of different formats. That is absolutely worth a spotlight at the end of our podcast for Mr. LVB.
Not just that, he was the leading wicket taker in the Plunket Shield last summer.
Well, there you go. Even better. 36
wickets. Next best was Wellington comrade Liam Dudding on 29 wickets. Then Michael Ray on 28 wickets. But then you check their averages. Logan van Beek, 20.6. Liam Dudding, 23.8. Michael Ray, 33.4. So Logan van Beek took the most wickets by a significant margin and had a lower average by a decent margin as well. And he averaged 28 with the bat. He's averaged 28 with the bat in County Championship and Plunket Shield. Just pure chance. And 25 and 20 with the ball. This is the thing about Logan van Beek, that it may explain his whole career. I think this is the best cricket he's ever played. And it's taken him a long journey to get here. He started with Canterbury before he moved to Wellington. And he's always done a good job. But just looking through these stats and these performances in Plunket Shield County Championship cricket, he's always really good for Netherlands. Same tournaments, same international arena that the Black Caps and the gods of international cricket, such as South Africa and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and the West Indies. Logan van Beek's in that arena doing a good job, and he's also in the same arena County Championship, Plunket Shield, as many other Kiwis doing a great job as well. So have a sip of your beverage, spark one up for Logan van Beek. And hopefully we see a few more overs from Tim Robinson. That is the niche case this week. Hit us up. Big up yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Church.